Alright everybody, so how we doing today? So my normal volume of videos is going to be dialed back. I got stuff I need to do today. I need to clean up the house, caught up on the dishes. Need to fix this place up, really. Anyway, so here we are. So, there'll be 3 videos today, and for video number 1. Forget paying for Medicare for all, we can't pay for the Medicare we have, which is a claim from Reason.com, Free Minds, Free Markets. And we will be sort of reacting to this article. A new report predicts Medicare spending will rise faster than private healthcare spending. For the last several years, political conversations about Medicare have revolved mostly around either preserving the program in its current form or expanding it. While campaigning for president as a Republican in 2015 and 2016, Donald Trump repeatedly stated his opposition to any Medicare cuts, and since then has positioned himself as a defender of the federally run health program against the encroachments of socialism, a rhetorical maneuver that was subsequently adopted by other Republicans. Democrats concurrently have increasingly focused on expanding the program, either by allowing people who are not currently eligible to buy their way in, or by using the program, or at least its branding, as the basis for single-payer insurance or something like it. Roughly speaking, Democrats want Medicare for all, while Republicans want Medicare for those who have it now. The left side of the debate has been dogged, rightly, by questions of affordability and fiscal soundness. Multiple estimates put the cost of Medicare for all in the single-payer form envisioned by Senator Bernie Sanders at around $32 trillion. How would a program like this, which even under rosy assumptions would require more than doubling individual and corporate income taxes, be financed? This is an important question, but for the moment at least it remains a hypothetical. This question is not how are we going to pay for the Medicare program. We already have? Oh, so did Bernie finally plant his money tree that money's just going to magically come out of? And for that matter, it almost seems like the left versus right narrative really is a false dichotomy and it's fake. Because you know what? The right-wing platform is actually helping the left-wing platform and vice versa. It's nonsense. It seems almost planned out at times. Anyway, this week's Medicare's actuaries released a new report projecting that over the next decade, national health spending will grow at 0.8% faster than the economy each year, eventually reaching $5.96 trillion as a result. Health spending as a percentage of gross domestic product is set to grow from 17.9% last year to 19.4% in 2027. Healthcare spending will then consume nearly a fifth of America's total economy. That figure accounts for both public and private payers. But the government-run programs are the largest drivers of the growth, with Medicare by far the biggest of the bunch. Over the next decade, Medicare spending is expected to rise by 7.4% each year, while spending on Medicaid, the joint federal-state health program for the poor and disabled, is set to rise by 5.5% annually. Spending on private health insurance is projected to rise as well, but at 4.7% annually. This increase won't be as fast. Increased spending on Medicare and to a lesser extent Medicaid is the main factor. That increase is primarily a result of demographic change as more seniors enter the program. More enrollees means higher costs. But Medicare won't just cover more people, it will increase the average amount it spends on each person. And that increase will be larger than the commensurate increase in private health care spending. Supporters of Medicare for all sometimes argue that although the government costs would be significantly higher, total national health spending would decrease. That only holds under the improbable assumption that healthcare providers could absorb large reimbursements cuts without service disruption. In any case, these estimates suggest the weakness of attempting to control overall spending growth through Medicare, which is expected to substantially outpace private insurance spending growth. In short, it would seem that state healthcare, nationalized healthcare is on the rise. It appeals to many people, and it largely appeals to emotion. People want it because it feels good to have to be covered. It feels good to have your fears about illness at least appear to be taken care of. But private healthcare insurance would do better. These state-run hospitals and these state-run doctor programs, which have all but destroyed the doctor-patient relationship, which many doctors have said, including former Dr. Ron Paul, who has literally seen the patient-doctor relationship go down the tube. Yeah, you'll be covered, not have to spend a penny, unless it's through taxing, of course. But you know what? You get what you pay for. You pay more money on private health insurance, but trust me, it's worth the expense. There are other ways to break down the projected increase. Spending on drugs, hospital visits, and doctor services are expected to rise rapidly over the next 10 years. But Medicare, the nation's largest public payer for healthcare services, contributes to all of these categories. It is hard to avoid the conclusion that Medicare is the dominant factor in the projected increase in overall spending. This is not a new phenomenon. Healthcare spending began its rapid rise as a percentage of the economy around the time that Medicare and Medicaid were introduced. The business and practice of medicine have obviously changed dramatically in the intervening decades. As with any economic transformation, multiple factors are in play. But there has long been a case that when it comes to rising health spending, Medicare is the primary culprit. In addition to the program's larger effects on the economy, hold on a second, the program's internal finances are the increasingly dire shape. Last year, the program's trustees projected that its main trust fund, which itself is a kind of accounting fiction, would be depleted in 2026. 3 years earlier than previously anticipated, the program wouldn't simply stop, but revenues would only be sufficient to cover 91% of expenses, a percentage that would decline over the next 15 years. Over the next 75 years, the program faces $37 trillion in unfunded liabilities. Macroeconomic projections are admittedly difficult and prone to mistake assumptions, but even if the figures aren't precisely right, that provides a sense of the scale of the problem. Today, Medicare and Medicaid are widely acknowledged as the biggest drivers of the federal government's long-term debt. Broadly speaking, America's biggest fiscal problems are healthcare spending problems. And America's healthcare spending problems are largely problems stemming from increasing spending on Medicare. Yes, because with the current tax rate, it is impossible to pay for that kind of healthcare. Not to mention the drain of the military-industrial complex, and the additional drain of illegal immigration on top of that. That's why they go into debt spending. Because they can't cut spending. Oh no. No, sir. They can't do that. So they debt spend, and they end up owing more and more money. This government is massively fiscally irresponsible. Like you wouldn't believe. Anyway, to finish this article up, and those are problems that approximately no one in national politics wants to deal with or even meaningfully acknowledge. Although national politics figures occasionally nod to Medicare's fiscal challenges and their various economic ripple effects, there is now no significant political movement to address them. I am under no illusion that building such a movement, that this is the guy that wrote the article, would be easy or immediately popular. Medicare is generally well liked, which is why Democrats have branded single payer as Medicare for all. The program is so well liked, in fact, that one of the most effective criticisms for Medicare for all is that it would undermine current Medicare. But independent of whether they are easy or popular, reforms will eventually become necessary. Yet our nation's political class now seems intent on either ignoring the problem or making it worse. Yes, Medicare is yet another large expenditure that is hurting our economy. And heavy taxation could fix that issue, certainly. But guess what heavy taxation would do? If, let's say, you did something a friend of mine wants to do. Shout out to Vin of Vin and Sori. Vin would want to have a 90% flat tax on the entire population. The problem with that is what the people would have left once the government provides everything for them would not be much to survive on. It would have to be relative to the person's income. 90% of their income or 90% period of a static 90% of a static volume, or 90% of the person's income. If it were a static volume, then only some people would be able to pay it, and not all. And if it were relative, people wouldn't have much left to live on. They would barely have enough to pay for food at the supermarket. And if everyone was getting taxed like that, then how are they going to afford to get to work every day to work? What would even be the point after a time? Yeah, you could pay for Medicare with that, but you'd be completely undermining capitalism in general. The market would be strangled due to lack of purchasing power, because no one would have any money left to perform essential functions such as top-down investments and the purchasing of new gross domestic product, increasing the purchasing power of your currency. That's a big problem, Vin. That's a big problem, people who want Medicare for all. Medicare for all is a huge expenditure, and there's no way in hell we'd be able to pay it. Not with our current economy. Not when we're paying so many other things, and all these politicians who are practically addicted to spending way too much money. It's a pipe dream. Get over it. I'm sorry, but there you go. Free market private healthcare would really be your best option. With the marketplace competition, it would become very cheap and affordable very quickly. Anyway,